The next bill on the calendar for the day is Senate File 278. The clerk will report the bill.
Senate File number 278, number 3 on the calendar for the day, an act relating to the health care.
I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Dakota, Representative Mann, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members. Senate File 278 deals with the licensure and transparency of the pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. A pharmacy benefit manager functions as a middleman between the drug manufacturer and the health carrier or the pharmacy. Initially, they were hired to make deals with the manufacturer, buy in bulk and get the lowest prices for prescription medications, and pass that price down to the patient. Unfortunately, in many cases, that is not the case anymore. So what is happening now is that the PBM will go to the manufacturer and say, I will put your drug on the formulary, which is the list of medications that gets to the patient, and I will keep your competitors off of this list, but I will need a incentive to do that. And so they get what we call a kickback. And that can be a flat fee, or it can be a percentage of the drug that they place on the formulary. Because of this, in order for the manufacturers to keep their profit margin, they have to increase the price of the drug. And because of these incentives, PBMs can also choose more expensive drugs to put on the formularies, choosing brand name drugs versus the generic drugs, which of course increases the price of the drug for the patient. These practices have only been intensifying over the last several years, as we now have a system that has been monopolized by only 3 PBMs, who own now over 75% of the business. These 2 practices have 2 significant outcomes. One is cost, like I touched upon already, and the second result, which is most important to me, is the medical outcomes. When a formulary is changed, the patient has to start a new drug. This means that medical decisions are being made not because they are medically necessary, not because the doctor wants them to change, not because the patient wants them to change, but they are being made for monetary reasons. When a medication changes, patients now have to come back to the office for repeat blood work to make sure they're not having new side effects, to make sure the medication is working. They have to miss work and potentially need childcare. Of course, this increases the cost of healthcare as a whole. PBMs are essentially making some very big medical decisions that directly impact patient care in the state of Minnesota, and they're doing this without any oversight. So one of the many things that this bill will do is to license PBMs. Nurses, doctors, manufacturers, hospitals, everyone is licensed to practice in the state except for the PBMs. This bill will require transparency in the dealings of the PBMs. What rebates did you get? How much were you charged for that drug? What did you pay the pharmacy for that drug? Where is the money going? This bill will prohibit PBMs from shortchanging pharmacies, which are really impacting our family-owned pharmacies in the state. They'll prohibit PBMs from charging a patient a higher cost at the point of sale, will allow patients to synchronize their medications, which will make their lives easier, and will allow the pharmacist to discuss cheaper alternatives with the patient. This is a really great bipartisan bill. It will bring accountability and transparency to a very obscure player in our healthcare system. It will put pressure on PBMs to have more fair dealing practices and will bring down the cost of prescription drugs. I ask for your support.
No amendments.
There are no amendments at the desk. The clerk will give the bill its 3rd reading.
3rd reading, Senate File number 278.
3rd reading. Discussion to the bill. Representative Munson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I do have a question for the bill's author. We're voting on the Senate file. We're not using the House language. Is that?
She will yield. Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So it's called the Senate file, but in the last committee stop, we adopted the House language for our version.
Representative Munson.
Okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. I guess I'm working off of the second engrossment of the House File 278, but I do want to clarify that under Section 4, that it still has the language that the pharmacy benefit manager has a fiduciary duty to the health carrier, okay, so I'm getting a nod from the bill's author. I had a concern in committee when I heard this language because I know in my private sector job I deal with clients having a fiduciary duty, but the fiduciary duty is always to the client. or the customer, and not to another health carrier, which is what it is listed in this bill. So I know that there's language that's going to be worked out in conference committee, but I have a hard time with the pharmacy benefit manager, the PBM, having, to keep control on the fiduciary, the bottom line for another private entity. And we really should be focusing when we create legislation that's going to be bringing price transparency to the pharmaceutical industry, that it's good that we do this for the benefit of the patient or the enrollee. And I do support many provisions of this bill. There's legislation that I carried last year on removing the gag order for pharmacies and allowing patients to go to the pharmacy and actually see what things cost. And that's really important. If we're going to be lowering the cost of pharmaceuticals in this country, it's so very important that people understand what the costs are, not just to their copays, but to the underlying health insurance plan, because our health insurance costs are just a collection of what the healthcare costs are rolled into one. So understanding the differences between generics and name brand drugs and the actual cost of the insurance pool is so very important. And so, Representative Mann, and thank you for authoring this bill. And there's some small provisions in this bill that I disagree with. I do support the bill and its purpose, and I hope we can really drive some change. I do want to say that I don't typically vote for regulations and creating a whole level of bureaucracy on an industry. And I consider myself a capitalist, and I support the innovation that's driven through free market companies and not just running things by the government. But the pharmacy benefit managers are doing, and what they've done to this pharmaceutical industry is not capitalism. This is crony capitalism. This is buying legislation that allowed them to operate and control pricing in this industry to drive the cost of pharmaceuticals up and to profit from that. And so this is a result. When you take advantage of legislation to mask pricing from the consumers, this is the repercussion. You get regulations on your industry. And this is a necessary regulation and a necessary level of bureaucracy to bring price transparency to the public. And I hope that we can do more to allow consumers to see these individual kickbacks and we work it out in committee so that it's not just at a general PBM level for their cost, but we can actually drive it down to give the information to the insurance carrier so they can see how their customers, their patients, are being driven to buy name brand pharmaceuticals over generics. So thank you, Madam Speaker, and members. I urge you to vote yes on this bill.
The member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. I, too, also believe that there are a number of provisions in this bill that offer reform that are needed in the pharmaceutical industry and in the way that we provide services to Minnesotans as it relates to health care. My number one hang-up on this bill and why I'm going to be voting no today is the provisions that deal with fiduciary responsibilities. Very quickly, contract law is at one level. I enter into a contract with someone, I expect that they're going to be acting in good faith, that they're also going to be behaving within the confines of the law. In a fiduciary relationship, all of those things are required. Plus. And the plus on this is that you have to advocate wholly, solely, and exclusively on behalf of one individual. So the concern that I have, and I've heard it from members in this chamber, I've heard it from members in this chamber on both sides of the aisle. They have questions about insurance, healthcare insurers, denying claims, denying medical access, limiting the number of trips that one can have for certain kinds of services and the like. And we pound the desk and we pound the table and say, this just isn't right. This just isn't right. What this bill does is this bill moves a fiduciary obligation for the pharmacies, for the pharmaceuticals, I should say, to enter into a fiduciary relationship with the healthcare insurance providers. My question is, do we move the problem from one area to another if those who believe that the insurance company is getting between the patient and their doctor? Does this help or does this hurt that relationship by amping up the requirements for the pharmaceuticals with the health insurance provider? If you believe that there's already too much that the insurance companies are doing to limit access to health care, to limit access to patient needs, how does this fix that problem? It doesn't. Again, I do believe that there are very important provisions that are found in this bill in an area that needs some shoring up and some regulation, but not with the fiduciary. That's problematic. I believe if this bill becomes law, the way it's written right now, there'll be some people who will be happy with the provisions that are in there, but we will be right back here on this chamber floor, 1, 2, maybe 3 years from now, pounding the table once again, those who say healthcare insurers are getting in the way of doctor and patient relationships. They're limiting the amount of, this time instead of medical procedures, pharmaceutical options. I used to have, now I have to have. All the things that Representative Mann had talked about, having to go back, have blood work to see how this is working with your others, I think you're just simply moving it from one group of people to another. It doesn't solve that part of the problem. Members, I wish I could be voting yes for this today. Again, as I said, I think this area is ripe for some reform. But I really have heartburn over the fiduciary responsibilities. Once again, it's higher than contract law. Right now, we have a problem with contract law, as some would say, with the health care insurer receiving a contract and entering into a contract. Why do we think it's going to be better if we amp up the relationship and make it a fiduciary relationship? Please, members, vote no. Thank you.
The member from Scott, Representative Albright.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, Representative O'Driscoll and I have a somewhat unique experience from a financial perspective with regard to the fiduciary responsibility. Representative O'Driscoll laid out, I think, one of the issues with the fiduciary responsibility. Let me share with you another one. Right now in state statute, there is no definition for a fiduciary as it would pertain to this subject matter. And so I think that in the light of trying to impose a financial level of fiduciary responsibility on the medical community, as Representative O'Driscoll has stated, you're trying to put a round peg in a square hole. Now, if you go to the federal level, I know we don't have to really argue about this, but if you went to the federal, because the bill itself says the state or federal definitions. If you go to the federal level, and then you're dealing with ERISA, another subject matter that probably only few in this chamber appreciate, Representative O'Driscoll, you have 3 different levels of fiduciary responsibility, none of which pertain to this subject matter. Which brings me to my next point. In the bill, it talks about rulemaking, but it also talks about the prohibition of providing licenses after a set time. I believe it's January 1st of 2020. That would literally give the Department of Commerce 5 months to put rulemaking in place before they could provide licenses. Representative Mann, as you take this into conference committee, I hope that you consider correcting those provisions so that they align. In most cases, rulemaking under this is going to take a lot longer than 5 months. And there is going to be a gap if that is not corrected. I share the concerns that Representative O'Driscoll has enumerated here. On the balance, there are a couple other issues that I would like to talk about as well. In the bill, it talks about the prohibition against mail-order pharmacies. While I understand the self-serving nature of having a mail-order pharmacy attached to a PBM, What we also need to ascribe to is that the Department of Defense also found through their mail order pharmacy that there was a 23 times greater accuracy rate in the delivery of those prescriptions, plus it actually drove down the cost of those prescriptions. Please consider that, Representative Mann. Maybe one of the larger issues that I think needs to be addressed as you walk into conference committee is the issue of data collection. Under the bill, you will collect information on every single prescription issued in the state of Minnesota. I think that the number is roughly 57 million prescriptions. And by what you have in your bill, Representative Mann, that list isn't short in terms of the data collected. It is voluminous. Now, while we appreciate the need for disaggregation, for redacting the potential for privacy, I also believe that you have way too much in terms of information for anyone to digest. And so the pertinence of any one of those pieces of information should be considered, particularly in light of the fact that you are going to collect and retain the private prescriptions for Minnesotans, and right now that stands at 57 million different pieces of information. Not only is that cumbersome, but I think, as others in this chamber would probably elaborate on, you've got an IT problem of a magnitude of other nature in terms of security, management, accessibility, and security. So please consider that. The fiduciary responsibility itself has been pointed up, and it's also been provided in 3 other states, none of which has used it efficiently. And in one state, I believe it was Maine, they had it on the books. It was never enforced, and actually they took it off the books because it was not enforceable. So the fiduciary responsibility as a key feature of what you're trying to do is well intended, but I think that you can accomplish the methodology of providing more enforcement against the PBMs without the fiduciary nature of what you're putting in there. Members, when we look at bills, we have to look at them in the balance. The provisions that are well-meaning, the ones that are problematic. As we debate and vote on this going off this floor, I think, as I would see it and as Representative O'Driscoll has articulated, the balance shifts this one for me into not voting for because of these provisions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Cottonwood, Representative Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Representative Baker is going to hold me up if I need it. That's what he said, and add a little humor to it, if I will. Friends, this bill's long overdue. I've been working on this for a number of years. You're supposed to keep me from not getting emotional, too. That's your responsibility there, pal. Real people are being harmed, and our small rural pharmacies are being destroyed. And I say it's by pharmacy benefits managers, by PBMs. Again, this is long overdue. I've shared with you my story and how I've been directly impacted negatively. How the PBM interfered with the delicate situation of my health, and they interfered with what the doctor was prescribing to me. And I've shared it, and I said, I'll blame them. I'll blame them straight out for putting me in a wheelchair. It's wrong. It's absolutely wrong what's taken place, and this needs to be addressed and needs to be reined in. And again, I've shared my story a number of times, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but This is one big step in the right direction. We have the opportunity to do the right thing and to represent the people that send us here to make these tough decisions, if you will. Representative Mann, thank you. You've been able to get this bill farther than I have in the past. I thank you for that. Obviously, this is a big issue and very important to me. Members, I'm simply going to ask for your support. Thank you.
The member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Will the author yield for a couple of questions?
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the author, this is a Senate file, so in your conversations with the Senate author, is your expectation that they will be concurring with the new language or that they'll be requesting a conference committee?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've spoken to the author of the Senate file, and we will conference this bill.
Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So obviously this is just another step in the process rather than us looking at final passage on this. If the author would yield for another question.
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the author, in the event that government were to step into the responsibilities that existing PBMs are engaged in, would these regulations and these changes apply to government?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not quite sure what you're asking. Are you asking like government-run programs like Medicaid or?
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, if the author would continue to yield.
She will continue to yield. Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, and to the author, there's been extensive conversations about the government managing their own formulary list and providing some of the traditional roles that PBMs have engaged in. So in that case, would the changes in this bill apply to government should government develop their own exclusivity list?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. If PBMs are involved, we will require the same data from the PBMs.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker, if the author would yield.
She will yield. Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and to the author. I understand that it applies to PBMs. What I'm saying is if the government steps in, which is currently, regardless of people's positions on PBMs, if the government was to step in and assume the role that currently the private sector PBMs are engaging in, would this bill apply to that entity?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill deals solely with pharmacy benefit managers.
Representative Garofalo.
Madam Speaker and members, I think what that means is that the answer is no. As we see greater movement towards the idea of a government model, we see that we're creating yet another incentive to move towards a single-payer healthcare model. For that and other reasons, members, I would ask for a no vote on this bill.
The member from Scott, Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, author, for the bill. I do believe, as has been spoken to, that a lot of these things are necessary, but I do rise, and I know you're getting sick of hearing the word fiduciary, but dealing in the businesses that I deal in, that has a big connotation. And although it seems like just one word and not a reason to vote against this bill, my concern is that we're making a fiduciary responsibility to health carriers. If the author would yield for a question, Madam Speaker.
She will yield. Representative Vogel.
Thank you. The question I have is in line 8.3, where it says it's a fiduciary responsibility to the healthcare carrier. I'm curious why you put the fiduciary responsibility to the carrier and not to the patient.
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, at this point, the PBM works as a subsidiary or a subcontractor to the health carrier and not the patient directly.
Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And my concern there is that by doing this, I think we're creating an inherent conflict, because we're telling the PBM that they have a fiduciary responsibility to a healthcare carrier. Therefore, if they're looking at how they're going to either offer the drug or deal with co-pays or deal with other products, their first and foremost and fiduciary responsibility is to the healthcare carrier, not to the patient. And that's why I like the idea of this bill, because it's getting to the patient and giving them information as well as putting in statute more protections for them. If the author would yield again, Madam Speaker.
She will yield. Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I said that I believe that it's going to create an inherent conflict because we're telling the the benefits manager to have a fiduciary responsibility to the health carrier. Do you see any potential for that to be a conflict with the patient, since the fiduciary responsibility is to the carrier who is actually making a profit off of the insurance product that the patient is paying for?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this is part of the issue, right? It's the chain that goes all the way from the manufacturer or the insurance company all the way down to the patient. And we need to start somewhere to stopping that chain from profit, patient. So right now what we're saying is that we're asking the PBM to have a fiduciary duty to the health carrier, and the health carrier should act in the best interest of the patient. So we're taking one step in that chain to make things better. When we talk about taking steps to make things better, we often hear this narrative of, well, if you're not going to fix the entire problem right now, I'm not behind it. And so I just don't think that holds much water.
Representative Vogel.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, Representative.
Members, please be quiet during debate so members can hear one another. Representative Vogel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I still contend that when we're making the fiduciary responsibility to the healthcare carrier and not to the parent, the patient, and I don't disagree that the carrier has a responsibility to the patient. I'm not so sure it's a fiduciary responsibility. It may be in code. I'm not familiar with all the statutes. But in this case, what we're saying here is that if the PBM has to make a decision, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the healthcare carrier exclusive of the patient, because there's nothing in here that's saying deal with the patient. It's saying deal with the carrier. So, Madam Speaker, members, as much as I would like to vote for this because I really believe it's a good idea and its time has come, I really think we have to be careful when we use words like fiduciary responsibility, because and especially in this case where we could be impacting negatively the people that it's meant to help. Thank you.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Quam.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. It's pretty obvious. We all feel there's a need for reform on this part of health care. The big risk when we're all for is that we rush and we don't try to avoid stumbling stones and delays. I think there are some issues in the language that could cause implementation problems. It's been touched on the rulemaking. It's been touched on that part of the language or similar language has been used in other states. I fear that there is litigation risk to part or this whole bill with the current language. I also feel that there's risk in the implementation, and quick implementation is not always the best and most effective, and that we need to implement it so it'll work, so that it won't, in the long run, cause more problems than we're solving, or delay the fact that we actually get a good solution in. And I'm hearing a lot of concern in that we look and try and fix portions of this, and that we're for the idea, but we don't want to go, oh, we've passed something, and the next year or the year after, we're revisiting because we didn't take care of some of these issues. And I hope we look at the issues that are in here. I really hope the debate in the conference committee can solve this, but I don't think the language in the current bill is there yet. Thank you.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott. The member from Pope, Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. There's a lot of support for this bill, but would the author of the bill yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Anderson.
Thank you for bringing the bill forward. We all agree that it's badly needed. My concern is that we're in the second to the last week of session, and you're telling us it's going to go to a conference committee. Can you give us some level of assurance that this bill is going to, in fact, come back and not get lost these last hectic days of session? Because, again, a lot of support for it, and want to see it come back and have a final passage. So what level of assurance can you give us that it is going to come back out of conference?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So I've been working on this bill since pretty much the moment I got here, and it's one of the main reasons I ran for office. And so if I have anything to say about it, this bill will come back and it will be passed off the floor.
The member from Goodhue, Representative Haley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And just a few quick comments. I just want to be on record that I support these reforms. And thank you to Representative Hamilton for years of work advocating for patient rights. And to Representative Mann, just as a member of the committee and serving with you on HHS, I know how passionate you are about your patients and about patient rights as well. So I do believe we have a lot of compromise and agreement on most of the components of this bill and all the things that we will do to help with patient rights. And many of the provisions, in fact, were passed last session and were caught up in a veto. So I just want to remind you that you have a lot of support here, Representative Mann, and the comments that were made about the fiduciary language is really the troublesome piece. And so I would encourage just sincere work on that piece so that you can bring it back out of conference and we can have green on the board to help all Minnesotans. Thank you, Representative Mann. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Howard.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I want to thank Representative Mann for bringing this bill forward, and to Representative Hamilton for your leadership on this issue. This is a fantastic bill. And there's been a lot of discussion this session about the cost of prescription drugs, a lot of legislative efforts that are moving forward. And I believe this bill has the greatest ability to go down the path of making the systemic change that we need in our healthcare system to put patients first. It's the most important bill, I believe. And I'm really optimistic about the conversation we've had this session around prescription drugs. We are doing great work together on a bipartisan basis this session when it comes to the opioid bill, when it comes to our work to address affordable insulin. And I think there is a sea change happening where we're recognizing that the time is now. The time is now to stand up for Minnesotans. We have a responsibility as legislators to stand up for the Minnesotans that are absolutely sick and tired of a system that is not working, a system that is driving up the cost of their prescription drugs and forcing choices that no one should be confronted with. And this bill is an excellent opportunity. And specifically, I want to mention that as we talk about pharmacy benefit managers, these are behemoths. There are essentially three that are controlling the lion's share of the market in Minnesota and across the country. Three of these PBMs that have revenues of over $100 billion a year with a B. And just one of those, when they were releasing their earnings in the last quarter in 2018, highlighted that in the fourth quarter they saw growth of 13%, and for the first time we're going to top over $100 billion a year. And you know the reason why? On the strength of higher prices for brand name drugs. That's how the PBM was able to see their earnings skyrocket to levels they haven't seen before. Members, this system needs reform, needs accountability, needs transparency, and this bill is an excellent step. And we absolutely should pass it this session. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Elkins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been working in the healthcare industry for about a decade now, and I'm fairly familiar with the business model involved here. The basic business proposition between a pharmacy benefit manager and a health insurance company is that the PBM goes to the insurance company and says, look, we know the pharmacy space backwards and forwards. We're confident that we can negotiate better discounts with the pharmaceutical manufacturers than you can negotiate themselves. And to prove it, we're going to have you pay us by sharing in the cost savings that we're able to negotiate. Okay, so the reason why the PBM should have a fiduciary relationship to the health insurance plan is that because the health insurance plan is the customer. And the nature of the three-way relationship between the pharmaceutical manufacturers, the PBMs, and the healthcare insurers is such that the PBM may be placed in a position between the negotiations that they have with the pharmaceutical manufacturers and the negotiations they have with the health insurers, where the pharmaceutical manufacturer may place them in a position where they've got a conflict of interest. And in those situations, the fiduciary provision in this bill would ensure that where they have a conflict of interest, they have to take the interests of their customer to heart, not necessarily their own, when the manufacturer offers them a deal that might enrich them, but not the work person, the firm that they're working on behalf of. So I don't think we should make that big a deal out of the fiduciary thing. I think it's actually appropriate if you understand the way this part of the industry works. And overall, this is a really great bill. It may not solve everything. This whole value chain is broken, but this is a huge step in the right direction, and I urge everyone to cast a green vote.
The member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I was interested in what some of Representative Albright's comments were regarding the data, and I did look at the bill, and it does have a reference to Section 13.37 of the Data Practices Act, and it regards trade secret information. And so I'm wondering if the author of the bill would yield to a question?
She will yield. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Representative Mann, it talks about the within 60 days upon receipt of the transparency report, the Commissioner shall publish the report from each pharmacy benefit manager to the Department of Commerce's website, with the exception of data considered trade secret information under 13.37. I'm wondering, first of all, did you consult with Representative Lesh, Chair Lesh, to see if this bill would have needed to come to the Judiciary and Civil Law Committee?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I did not speak to Representative Lesh about that, but we have been speaking with the PBMs as well as Department of Commerce to really get that language down as far as what is or is not trade secret so that they won't run into any issues.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And if you could just share with the body what you've learned about that, how they're going to classify trade secrets, because what I've learned with the whole trade secret language is that's an end around having to report certain information. And that has happened with some other entities within the healthcare space, shall I say. And it's allowed them to really skirt transparency to the legislature and to the people of the state of Minnesota. So I'm wondering what you've learned in that process about this whole trade secret language, because I don't want it to be an out for them.
She will yield. Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I completely agree with you. I also do not want them to be an out for them. And so this has been a really big topic of conversation, and we're still actually talking about it to this day. We have another meeting tomorrow about it because A, we don't want it to be an out for them, and B, we don't want the Department of Commerce to have any issues either.
Representative Scott.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I'll be interested to see what the outcome of that is. And in all reality, we're probably not going to know until the first report comes in whether they're using that as an end-around reporting information or not. It is very concerning. And I understand protecting trade secrets. I do understand why that's in the Data Practices Act, but I also know the history of that within the healthcare space, so that is concerning. But Members, I do think this is a good bill for the most part, but I think it still does need work. There are some provisions here that I think do cause some problems with it, and I would hope that we can cast a no vote today in hopes that it will come back better from conference committee. Thank you.
The member from Chisago, Representative New.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members. This is really important reform, and I actually signed on as a co-author to the bill. I like it. It's a good bill, but it does need just a little bit of work. There are a couple of things that are particularly concerning. We've talked a lot about the fiduciary responsibility, and I think maybe to put that in a little bit more of layman's terms, what that means is that the PBMs will be looking out for the bottom line of insurers rather than consumers. This is something that needs to be looked at and fixed for final passage. That's a big deal. And let's be clear, that will raise the cost of health care for consumers. So we really need to look at this. We use these big words around here and this legal language, but the bottom line is that this means that the pharmacy benefit managers will be looking out for the bottom line of insurers rather than consumers. That raises the cost of health care. In addition to that, there's some question about the kinds of relationships that the PBMs will be able to enter into. For example, right now they're able to enter into agreements. They're able to make agreements with mail order pharmacies, things like this, that provide better deals for the consumers. Right now, we get situations where if you purchase a 90-day supply of a medication, you can pay 2 copays rather than 3 copays by entering into these deals. There's a the language is not entirely clear, but it appears that may be prevented in the language currently in this bill. And in order to get that 90-day supply, you'll now be paying for 3 co-payments. That is a very direct increase in the cost of health care. Now, at the same time, I think these are relatively minor fixes. These are fixed in the Senate language. I will be voting no on this bill today, and I look forward to this coming back from conference committee cleaned up so that we can have a unanimous vote on this. I think that is what it will be when this language is cleaned up. Thank you.
The member from Rock, Representative Schumacher.
Thank you, Madam Speaker and members, and thank you, Representative New, for bringing up some of the points on the mail-order pharmacy piece that haven't been talked about too much today. I just want to hit a couple of points on the mail-order pharmacy piece and really just raise my concerns based on what the fiscal note had in it there on page 10 of this bill. We talk about the mail-order pharmacies and what impact they'll have, and they do talk about Representative New, the 90 days that you were talking about there, and the changing from the 2 copays to 3 copays, 50% more copays in this if you do the math that way. And so CGIP had raised concern, or MMB raised concerns with CGIP on what kind of costs would be raised because of the copays that are added to that. And they also noted, MMB did on behalf of CGIP, that the use of direct mail does increase patient adherence to the drug regime, and the bill restrictions on that could result, this is what the fiscal note says, could result in lowered adherence and potentially higher cost on the medical side. And if that's what MMB is reporting on behalf of CGIP, members, I would just ask what the rest of the public will also be experiencing from this, and would ask you to vote no today on this bill.
The member from Olmsted, Representative Liebling.
Madam Speaker and members, I rise to respond to a couple things that have been raised. First of all, some time ago there was a question about government doing this, and I want to tell the body that government does this already manages a formulary. I see Representative Garofalo is not on the floor any longer. This was his question, but in our Medicaid fee-for-service program, people who are not on managed care, we already, as a state, directly manage pharmaceuticals. We do it without a PBM, and we do it in a very transparent way with all kinds of public input and public meetings that are held. So there is quite a model for this already, And there is, in fact, a proposal this year to expand this. The governor has this as part of his One Care proposal, a benefit package to put all of our public patients into one pool and manage it the way we do now with our fee-for-service program. So the answer is this would not apply. It wouldn't have to apply because we already do this in a very transparent, public way. Secondly, members, I just wanted to rise to respond to some of what I've been hearing here on the floor. Somebody was worried about that this bill is looking out for the bottom lines of insurers. But looking out for the bottom lines of insurers. Members, if you don't want to do that, you should never have passed reinsurance. We took public money, gave it right to the insurers to help their bottom lines. So, boy, that shouldn't be your concern. But okay, I don't think this bill is doing that because, you know, one of the things too, remember, we have medical loss ratios in the state. So, yeah, we want to cut out the PBMs, which are really skimming a lot of money away from the insurers. That ends up in higher premiums. It raises the cost for the insurers. It ends up as part of higher premiums, not to mention higher out-of-pocket costs for people trying to get the medications they need. And so this bill would help to reduce the cost of insurance. That's a big reason to do this. A big reason to do it. And finally, I just wanted to say, I hear a lot of members saying, oh, I'd like to vote for this bill, but it isn't perfect. I sure like to vote for this. It does a lot of really important things, but isn't perfect. In my experience, if I want what the bill is trying to do and it isn't perfect, I vote for that bill. Because that's how you get a bill to conference committee, not by voting no. Voting no means don't send the bill to conference committee. At least that's what it's always meant to me. So, you know, I suggest to members, if you think this is really important, which obviously a lot of us do, a lot of us realize, on both sides of the aisle in both bodies, a lot of us realize this is a serious problem and it's time to start solving it. I think that will mean a nice green board. There should be a completely green board up there. Not one member should vote no, because that usually means don't send it to conference. It should die here. That's what it means to me. And I would think the public would think that too.
The member from Wright, Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My question is for the bill author, if she would be willing to answer.
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the bill author, I was listening to the exchange between yourself and Representative Scott, and I believe I heard you say that in regards to trade secrets, that language is still under discussion, and you have a meeting tomorrow. So my question to you is, if the bill language is still under discussion tomorrow, do you think it's the best that we vote on it today?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I may be new here, but I know this isn't the only bill that's passed off the floor that's still being worked on. So absolutely, we should vote on it today.
Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Would the bill author continue to yield, please?
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So is this a case where I need to either vote for or against it in order to find out what's in the bill?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I didn't hear you, Representative.
Representative Lucero.
Do I need to vote for this bill to find out what's in it?
Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. No, you could just read it.
Representative Lucero.
Madam Speaker, well, you just said, Representative Mann, that the language is still under discussion. So if I read it now and vote on it now, it's going to be different tomorrow, potentially. So reading it now doesn't necessarily help me when you've admitted this is still a work in progress. Madam Speaker, would Representative Liebling yield for a question?
She will yield. Representative Lucero.
Madam Speaker, and Representative Liebling, I become increasingly frustrated with your usage of some of the generalizations that you continue to speak about on this floor. The most recent one you just said in your most recent comments was in regards to reinsurance. And you keep saying something to the effect of, you people, you guys, that side. And you and I have had, Madam Speaker, a conversation on reinsurance where I've corrected you. I didn't support it last year, voted against it this year. So, Madam Speaker and Representative Liebling, why do you continue to make errors in your remarks when you generalize?
Representative Liebling no longer wishes to yield. Representative Lucero.
Madam Speaker, point made. Thank you.
The member from Washington, Representative Jurgens.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And many of the comments that I had have already been made, so I won't go into any great detail on any of them. But thank you, Representative Mann, for bringing this forward. This is, in general, a very good bill. With respect to my friend and colleague, Representative Hamilton, for the work that you've done on this in the past, I appreciate that, and thank you. My biggest concern is the same as what we've heard, having to do with Section 4 and the fiduciary to the insurers. My fear, as Representative New said, is that it will raise the cost of health care. I see that we have two choices here. We can either vote yes to get this to conference committee and hope that it gets fixed, or we can vote no, knowing that it's going to likely get to conference committee and hope that it gets fixed. I expect and I hope that if and when it does come back from conference committee with the language specific to the fiduciary being responsible to the insurers, that we will have an all-green board. But today, because of that section, I will be voting no, hoping that that language gets cleaned up, because I think that all in all, this is a good bill. All in all, the reforms are much needed. Specifically, I'm happy to see that the gag clause being removed. I think that that's very good and very long overdue. So I will be voting no today, and hopefully when this comes back, we will all be able to vote green on it. Thank you.
The member from Hennepin, Representative Bonner.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you, members. First, I want to thank Representative Hamilton. I know that you have put a great deal of effort into this bill, and I know that a lot of that hard work is the result that we see today. I know you're passionate, and I want to thank you for that. I also want to thank Senator Jensen for all of his hard work. This has been a very long but bipartisan effort, and I know that Representative Mann has continued to work tirelessly day after day on really working to refine this language to make it something that we can really vote for and light that board green. This bill is about putting patients first. It's about our seniors. It's about our families, our young families, putting them first. Not second, not third, and definitely not last. That's exactly what the system has been doing, and this is time for reform. This is needed. Members, we know this. This is not going to shock anyone in this room. This is one of the most sweeping reforms we've ever seen on this front. This has been worked on for years. It's time to pass it. It's time to put our patients back in the driver's seat and put money back in the pockets of the real people in our communities that we represent. This bill isn't just about flowery language. It's about real people. And I don't know about all of you in this room, but when I went door to door talking to folks in my district, I heard seniors who are worried that they can't afford to pay their prescription drugs. They're worried about how they're going to manage their expenses, how they're going to manage their health care. These are folks who should be worrying about when they're going to spend their next day out with their grandchildren, not whether they can afford their prescription. These are young families who are worried about putting money on the table and paying for daycare. They can't be put last anymore. That is unacceptable. So, members, I urge you not only to vote green for this because it's time, but because it's time for us to recognize that it is time to put patients back in the driver's seat and put them first. Thank you.
The member from Fillmore, Representative Davids.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to comment on a couple issues here.
The first one is, a couple days ago, we had a bill on landlord-tenant relations. I think it had to do with some language from Representative Knorr, I believe it was. And one of the members on this body stood up and said, well, I don't want to hear from landlords or slumlords because I don't want to hear from them because they have a conflict of interest. Here we have a case where we have a medical doctor carrying legislation on medical issues. Now, is that a conflict of interest to the member who brought that up earlier? I'd say no, it's not. I own a farm. When we talk about ag stuff, do I have a conflict of interest because I vote on farm bills, or I'm in the financial services business and so on? So I thought that was pretty reckless when that was brought up, saying that landlords, because they're talking on a bill, have a conflict of interest. Of course, that's simply nonsense. Now, as far as the issue of reinsurance worked. It worked beautifully. Instead, there are those, my friends on the other side of the aisle, that want to set up a system, hire 50 people to send checks directly to insurance companies. So obviously that argument has zero merit whatsoever. And then I was a bit perplexed by some of Representative Howard's comments having to do with this bill needs to be passed because the companies we're dealing with are really, really big. Who cares? Who cares about the size of a company? McDonald's is bigger than a PBM, and they put out a really good product that I like, and they made a lot of money off me. A lot. So I don't understand the logic of because a company is big, it's bad, because that's not the case. Now, on this bill, there's some really bad things in this bill, but there's a lot of really good things in here, too. And so I think you have to just I'm voting for the bill today. Hopefully, the Senate can clean up the fiduciary issues that are very problematic. They are problematic. I wouldn't diminish those issues whatsoever. And of course, I must close on something that is very personal to me, because we've all been through it here. Everybody at one time or another was a freshman. So when a freshman gets up on this floor and says, well, it's because I'm a freshman, please don't say that, because it's quite obvious to us.
Would any other member wish to speak on the bill before anybody wants a second bite at the apple? The member from Hennepin, Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I wanted to talk about this bill and the discourse that's gone on today. And I just wanted to comment about the abundant knowledge and wealth of information that each of these members in this body have to contribute with regard to the decisions we make on legislation. Representative Elkin, I appreciated the fact that you got up and talked about your 10 years in the industry, and you were giving your testimony and your professional expertise and your opinion about how this legislation could be influenced by what you had to contribute with those comments. And like Representative Davids just mentioned, I too was thinking about the context of this discussion and debate and some of the comments that have been made, and we should respect each other a little bit more for the contributions that we can contribute, whether you're a builder or whether you're a school teacher or whether you're an insurance agent or whether you're a landlord or a doctor. We are representative and a mirror of the people who send us here. And so we should take what we have to contribute, what we have to offer about legislating, and the comments that other members have seriously. I would also like to comment about the statement made about reinsurance. Reinsurance is not a handout to insurance companies. Reinsurance is there for the explicit purpose of reducing risk and therefore pricing a product more cheaply for the people that we're representing. So with that, members, thanks for the debate. You each will make your own decisions as whether it's time to vote green or red on this, but it certainly has been better than the last few days. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the bill? Any closing comments from the author of the bill? Representative Mann.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So first of all, this bill has nothing to do with government health care and single payer. Just wanted to clear that up. Two is there was a comment earlier made about how if we, well, first let me say this, currently the PBMs do not have any responsibility to act in the best interest of the health carrier or the patient. So there was a comment earlier made about we're going to make them act in the best interest of the carrier versus the consumer. That's not the truth. We're going to ask them to act in the best interest of the carrier versus themselves, which is what is currently happening. Third, and this is something I said before, but this narrative of this bill doesn't do enough, it doesn't go far enough, or there's an issue with it, so we're going to vote no on it. Well, what you're doing is you're voting to keep the status quo. What you're doing is to keep protecting the billionaires at the expense of the people of the state. That's what it means when things aren't good enough, when you want more from a bill. Because how do you get more if you don't start somewhere? So the reason why I ran for office is because of stories like Representative Hamilton's. Because I could not hear any more stories of people suffering at the hands of billionaires, of big pharma, of PBMs in this country and in this state. And I understand that big pharma is coming after me and has reached out to many of you here and the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce and all those other organizations. And I want it to be very clear that I don't care. And that I am going to stand up for the people that are suffering in my community, and I will not stand up to keep the status quo and to keep protecting people who benefit off of the sick people in this state. I ask for your support.
The clerk will take the roll on the bill. The clerk will close the roll. There being 87 ayes and 42 nays, the bill is passed and its title agreed to.